Yashodanandana Bhajajannaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Now the question is, what's going to happen when she comes out of the bathroom? Do you think she'll leave? Huh? Okay. Anyway, there's no distraction. All right, where are we? Text 10, I believe, huh? Right? Yeah. Chapter 15, text 10, page 602. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 25th day of June 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 15 entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person, text number 10, page 602. Utkramantang stitam vapi Bhunjanam vagunanvitam Vimudhananu pashyanti Pashyanti jnanachakshushaha Utkramantam stitam vapi Bhunjanam bhagunanvitam Vimudhananu pashyanti Pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Vijendra. Utkramantam stitam vapi Bhunjanam bhagunanvitam Vimudhananu pashyanti Pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Go ahead, Mukunda. Utkramantam stitam vapi Bhunjanam vagunanvitam Vimudhananu pashyanti Pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Utkramantam stitam vapi Bhunjanam vagunanvitam Vimudhananu pashyanti Pashyanti jnanachakshushaha. Utkramantam stitam vapi Bhunjanam vagunanvitam Vimudhanana pashyanti. Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. Utkramantam, quitting the body. Stitam, situated in the body. Va, api, either. Bhunjanam, enjoying. Va, or guna anvitam, under the spell of the modes of material nature. Vimudaha, foolish persons. Na, never. Anupashyanti, can see. Pashyanti, can see. Jnana chakshushaha, those who have the eyes of knowledge. Translation. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Purport. The word jnana chakshushaha is very significant. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge understood from the Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Every living entity is quitting his body under certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances, and he is enjoying under certain circumstances under the spell of material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kinds of happiness and distress under the illusion of sense enjoyment. Persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general, for their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this will be the final verse describing the transmigration of the soul. This topic has, of course, been covered to some degree in previous chapters. Certainly in chapter 2, we learn about that right at the beginning. And Krishna speaks about leaving the body and getting another body in other places. But here we have some very nice verses, kind of summarizing the whole process. And the general argument here that he's giving is that we're all entangled in this tree, this upside-down tree, a banyan tree of the material world. And we have been for countless ages, going from one branch to another, one situation to another. And as long as we don't have knowledge that this tree is simply a reflection of the real tree, and we take it to be the all in all, then we're just going to try to adjust our situation within the material world. And this is what everyone is doing. You can see, not just human beings, but everyone, trying to, you know, on a moment-to-moment basis, get some kind of security, some kind of happiness, some food, you know, whatever. And going on, completely oblivious, even human beings. And human beings have a greater intelligence, but if it's not applied properly, or if they don't come in contact with the real source of knowledge, then there's basically within that realm of enhanced eating, sleeping, bathing, and defending. So that's why Krishna is mentioning here the importance of jnana chakshush, this seeing through the eyes of knowledge, and that knowledge is acquired by doing what we're doing now, by hearing the books of knowledge such as Bhagavad Gita, which gives us insight into things beyond the range of our material senses and mind. In the second chapter, first canto, those famous verses describing what real dharma is. The sages asked, what is that dharma? What is that activity
by which the soul can actually be fully satisfied? And the answer is Savai Pungsang Pano Dharma Yato Bhakti Adhokshaje Ahoitukya Padira Yatma Supasiditi. For the Atma, the soul, to be fully satisfied, not just temporarily satisfied and then plunged into anxiety as we are in the material world, but really fully satisfied, one has to perform activity that awakens, revives one's bhakti to adhokshaja. And this word adhokshaja, it's a name for Krishna. It's not one of the personal names of Krishna in Vrindavan, but it's usually used when describing someone who's first beginning the path, first on the path of self-realization. Because adhokshaja is made up of 3 different words: adha, aksha, and ja. And ja is short for birth. Whenever you see something with ja in it, it generally means giving birth or generating. So akshaja means that knowledge which is generated by our senses, symbolized by sight. This is the scientific method. This is the classic ascending process, gathering information, establishing a theory, testing it, coming to a conclusion, building on that in this way. So that's the ascending process, scientific knowledge. But Krishna is adha akshaja, meaning that he pushes all that down. In other words, he's beyond that. All of the knowledge we can glean by our senses and our mind, no matter how smart we are, can never reach up to Krishna because he's beyond the range of material senses. That's what it means to be literally transcendental. Look it up in the dictionary. So, how can we learn from that? Because that's the necessity. If we're going to awaken our bhakti for adhokshaja, we have to learn something about adhokshaja. What is he like? What does he do? What does he look like? If you're going to, bhakti means loving devotion. There has to be some understanding of the details of that person. And that's why the Vedic literature, especially Bhagavad Purana, Bhagavad Gita, which give us substantial knowledge of the qualities, the form, the activities, the name of the Lord, they enable us to really develop our bhakti for Him, to serve substantially and remember. So that knowledge is coming to us now from the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna speaking. And if we can begin to see ourselves in the world in terms of this knowledge, then we can understand the process of transmigration and understand what we should do and what we should not do in order to get the best future birth. Hopefully, birth in the spiritual world, a purely spiritual body. That's the whole purpose of human life. Completely unknown to people in general. They're all working within this material compass of aspiring. Even if they're thinking of future generations, they're still thinking that future generations will be living here and doing more or less what we're doing, and hopefully doing it better. In other words, they have no understanding of what's beyond. So Krishna is giving us that vimudha nanapashyanti. Now the fools can't see this. Bunjanam. Bunjanam, here Prabhupada says enjoying. Actually, in this broader sense, it means experiencing. Because here, even in this I couldn't help smile. As a result, he is, what does it say? God is without knowledge, we can understand how living in his present body and what form of body he is going to take. From bona fide, one is trained to perceive all these things. He is enjoying under certain circumstances under the spell of material nature. Well, he's not always enjoying. Sometimes he's suffering. So that enjoyment in Prabhupada's vocabulary sometimes means enjoying and experiencing. That's really what's going on. So, and we've learned from the last few verses that according to our consciousness, we get a certain kind of body, a certain kind of ear, eye, nose, senses, or all these senses of touch, all these senses grouped around the mind. So the question is, how can we act now in this very life so that we get the best future body? And that's the process of devotional service. Okay, any questions on this verse? Or we can go on to the next one. Well, anupashyanti normally means seeing according to a higher authority. Seeing after. In other words, you're anu is like after or according to some instruction. You're not just seeing, but you're seeing with the vision supplied, with knowledge supplied by some higher authority. So it's emphasized here that they don't have that. The Vimutas they don't follow. They're just more or less animalistically seeing. That's the idea. Okay, now we're going to read yatanto. Now yatanto means to strive. That's why I like the yati is the sannyasi, the one who's always striving. Text 11. Yatanto yoginas chainam pashyantyatman yavastitam yatanto pyakutatmano nainam pashyanta chetasaha. Okay, so more seeing here. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. Purport. There are many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. Just an editorial note. It was fairly recently that we took that comma out after transcendentalists. Do you see the importance of not having the comma there? This is called a restrictive, is now restricted because there's no comma. In other words, it's not all the endeavoring transcendentalists. If you have a comma there, it means it's all the endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization. Are all endeavoring transcendentalists situated in self-realization? Zach, you're an endeavoring transcendentalism. So you see the important. Only those who are situated in self-realization can see clearly. You see the point. So that comes out right in the first sentence. That's why I picked up on changing. Comma can do a lot. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. Purport. There are many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word yoginaha is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are many so-called yogis, and there are many so-called associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. They have no other information. They are called yatanto vyakritatmanaha. Even though they are endeavoring in a so-called yoga system, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of the transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in the yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord, in other words, the bhakti yogis, those engaged in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness, can understand how things are taking place. So this principle of endeavoring, yatanta, everyone's endeavoring. The materialists are endeavoring often very, very hard. The spiritualists are endeavoring. Those who aren't endeavoring, who would, at anything, and deeply in the mode of ignorance, they're most unfortunate. At least those who are in the mode of passion are endeavoring, and if they can somehow be attracted to Krishna, then that good endeavor can be directed in the right way, and it can be fruitful. So the whole thing is, how are we going to apply our energy? What kind of energy? We have different kinds: sensual energy, physical energy, mental energy, intellectual energy, sensual energy. All of these, we're free beings, we're human beings, therefore we have more choice, we have more freedom. But the criteria by which we judge what is to be done and what not to be done, that makes all the difference. Here we are in Pacific Beach. Well, just a very, very, very small fraction of people in the Pacific Beach are seriously endeavoring for self-realization. Now, they're all fortunate because they know the Hare Krishnas over there in Cass and Grand. So at least they know that much, and that's, very, very rare that you have a place nearby that, But that's not enough. you know, then next birth they'll get born again near a temple. Maybe this time they'll go in. But those of us who are fortunate to have gotten the cue and the clue from hearing from realized souls, such as Srila Prabhupada, we should try to focus our endeavors as far as possible toward self-realization, toward Krishna realization. And that means there's a certain criteria. Because the mind and the senses are already conditioned in a certain way, and if we don't have a strong purpose and endeavor strongly, then they'll take us in their direction. The senses are already attracted, and the mind is filled with desires, and more are coming in all the time. And without strong guidance from purified intelligence, they're going to take us to another material body, and probably in this day and age, not a human one. So this is every day is another chance for us to move a little closer toward self-realization, or to let ourselves be deviated. One way or another, we're making our future every moment, every hour, every day that we live. So Krishna consciousness is serious business. And we have so many advantages. You know, Srila Prabhupada, by his great effort, he founded this movement, started all these centers. This one has been here for more than 40 years now, or almost 40 years. And it's a great opportunity. You just walk into the temple, and we heard we had that 45th anniversary. Who was it? Kirtika? The lady? Guru Maharaj's former wife? I think so. Who designed this whole place. It's such, you know, we're benefiting. I like to think of this sometimes. All these paintings. I mean, I knew all of these artists personally, you know, how hard they worked. They sent them all, you may know this, they sent them all to Italy at one point for like a year to learn the fine art of, you know, painting like Rembrandt or whatever, you know. And the fruits are here, and, you know, informed by their devotion, they produce all of these things. Everywhere you look, you're reminded of Krishna, and what to speak of the beautiful deity. When, you know, so we have a great opportunity just by walking in the temple. We're doing, you know, much more for ourselves than going off to the Himalayas and wrestling with the mind. We don't need that. What to speak about, you know, going into these yoga studios, you know. I remember I was in Columbus, and they're trying to build a big temple there. They've got a big piece of land, like 75 acres, and out in it's remarkable how you just drive maybe half an hour to Columbus, you're in deep farmland, you know, and they got a piece of land there, and they have a house on it too, pretty big house, and with a nice gathering room. You can fit maybe 50, 60 people there easily. So whenever I go, I usually do a program there. So this year, last time I was there was a yoga group that had been invited to come, and I think they'd been there before, you know. And these are like, you know, hatha yogis, you know, people doing hatha yoga mostly, you know. And so I don't get out that much, you know, so I haven't been really visiting hatha. But here they were, and you could see, you know, there were different levels. Some of them were a little more familiar with Krishna consciousness. Some of them were actually chanting. But most of them were just, you know, they were older, maybe 50, 60, some of them, some a little, you know, younger, in their 30s or 40s. But they were basically just trying to, you know, do something for health. You know, that was the whole idea. And but they were ready to listen. So, you know, I gave them a talk, and then we did a kirtan. And like here, I don't know about you, but whenever we can get the whole temple going around, it seems like that's that's a victory. You know, people are they're doing a little dance, even if it's just walking in time, they're more or less dancing, you know. So we did that. We had a little kirtan, and we all stood up. Everyone get up. Okay, you know. And we went around and around, and they started to feel a little bliss, you know. You could see the chanting Hare Krishna. And it was, I recall my history way back when I was, you know, I started Hatha Yoga. For a long time, that's all I was doing. And then I started chanting Hare Krishna along with the Hatha Yoga, you know, and it just changed the whole dynamic. It's like there's this other dimension. You're not, you know, you're not just bending and stretching and, you know, feeling better. You know, it's like so really, that's one of the best things that's going on. Is like they're really for their, spiritual part of their life. These yogis, they usually invite kirtan. There's a lot of kirtan going on to yoga studios. It's nice. But without that, it's just fancy gymnastics, as Prabhupada says. There's nothing much spiritual about it. So, but it's a good chance because it's yoga. It's from India. We're also yoga, bhakti yoga, but it's truly a different dimension. You can see it's a different dimension. This Krishna consciousness. I mean, Hatha yoga is not bad as long as there's some Krishna consciousness involved. Otherwise, it's not going to get you very far in terms of self-realization just on its own. Any questions, comments? Okay. Now, Krishna kind of switches gears now. Now he's going to talk about his manifestation, how he supports the world, and he's the source of light and everything. So he's changing gears a little bit. Text 12. Yadaditikatam tejo jagadbhasiyate kilam yat chandramasi yat chagno tattejo viddimamakam. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. Purport. The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. Everyone sees the sun, the moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in the material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and he is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. From this verse we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole universe. And there are different universes and there are different suns, moons, and planets also, but in each universe there is only one sun. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10:21, the moon is one of the stars, nakshatranamahang shashi. Sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. With the rise of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. They set fire to prepare their foodstuff, and they set fire to start the factories, etc. So many things are done with the help of fire. Therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, the moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Without his mercy, there cannot be sun. Without his mercy, there cannot be moon. And without his mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of the sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. So, remember a little ways back, Krishna described his spiritual world. Natad bhasiyate suryo nasasanko nabhavaka yadgatvana navartante tadhama paramamama. After breaking free of the banyan tree of this material world, cutting out the root with the sword of detachment, one has to search out that place from which you're going, you don't return, and there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now Krishna is there speaking in the third person. It's interesting the way he switches back and forth from me, he says me or I, and then he says that person. So now he's in the third person. But then after describing that, he says, that's my abode. That's my abode. So then he's in the first person again. And now again, he's describing those same things, the light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of fire or electricity, in terms of himself. Even here in this material world, all of the fire, all of the sun is coming from my energy. Mama come. It comes from me. So this is similar to what we learned in the 7th chapter, and even more detail in the 9th chapter and the 10th chapter. And that is how we can see God in this world. Don't just see the sun, see Krishna's sun. Don't just see the moon, see Krishna's moon. And then you can also, just by eating the vegetables, say, oh, why is it such a tasty avocado? Because of the light of the sun and the moon. And so that's Krishna, so it's Krishna's mercy. So in that way, you can train yourself. This is the light of the jnana chakshush, seeing with the eyes of knowledge. And gradually you understand Krishna is everywhere, and he's also supporting me. In other words, we're living by his grace. So this is an act of compassion. So these kind of verses help us to stay in Krishna consciousness through the material energy. That's why Prabhupada says this, these are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. Now, for us, our main way of provoking Krishna consciousness is by chanting the holy name. That's beyond this conception of seeing Krishna through the sunlight. But both are important, because we live. This is where we live. We live with these things all the time, and we take help from them. As Prabhupada says here, how are we going to live without the sun, moon, and electricity? We get a little taste, we can try to go into that closet. Not enough electricity. Suddenly it's not there as it used to before. So we take these things for granted, but in Krishna consciousness we don't take it for granted. We think, oh, this is Krishna's mercy, and in this way we can see him throughout the material world. Yes, sir. Well, there is a transition, and one of the things that he's doing here, remember the title of the chapter, it's Purushottam Yoga. So he's beginning to prepare us for that. He's going to describing in the next verse similar things, how I sustain everything, how I'm in everyone's, I on the fire of digestion, right? And then more specifically identifying with the super soul in text 15, which is one of the most famous in the chapter. Sarvasya buddhisandavisto, I'm in everyone's heart. So he's beginning to describe himself as the Purushottam, and it culminates in that, that one who knows me as that supreme person within the heart and outside, knows everything that you need to know. So I think that's what's going on here. He's now beginning to describe more specifically how he himself, Krishna himself, is that supreme person. And it begins first always with source of the things that we experience every day, and then the mystery, of the Lord in the heart, which you can't directly experience. But that's, very important verse. So that's what's happening here. He's kind of switching gears because he's getting to the point of directly describing the Purushottam. That's the way I see it. All right, we got time for one more. Text 13. Gama vishyatcha bhutani dharayam hamojasa pushnami chaushadhi sarva somo bhutvarasatmakaha. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said there that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like straw and other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet, just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets, which are floating in the air, are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in the air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word rasatmakaha is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. So, anyone ever hear this song by Mahalia Jackson? Never heard that name before. Huh? When I was a kid. Somehow or other, my parents, at a certain point, we were watching Gospels singing on TV. And one of the songs was, "He's got the whole world in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand." And that's just, see? You know, we're both old timers, but you know that. So there it is, right from the Bhagavad Gita. All the planets in his hand. So, what is it? Who says there are no people on other planets? There are. You have to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. They're there, but with our little senses, we can't see them. You know, nobody would anyone who suggests that there's actually living entities, let's call them living entities, advanced living entities, on the sun. Are you kidding me? Nothing can live on the sun. It's too hot, right? I remember when it came out, this was like years ago, you know, out just a little west of here, you've got some serious trenches and deep sea stuff going on. And there's volcanoes out there. They've done study, you know, go a little farther. They're underneath the water, you know. And there's vents coming out. It's not, they're not erupting all the time, but there's these vents, and it's extremely hot, way underwater, under high pressure, you know. So they went down there, and I don't know if they had some kind of bathyscaphe or something. They went down and they tested that water, and it's like 600 degrees Fahrenheit or something under high pressure. And lo and behold, they took samples of that water to see what's in there, you know. They found bacteria. They had to rip up all of their books that say bacteria can't live above, you know, boiling or something like that. 600 degrees. So, you know, Prabhupada makes the point, okay, you know, we have bodies composed of mostly water, I learned in 3rd grade or something, right? But there's earth, water, fire, like that. Brahma has a body. It's almost all intelligence. That's why he lives so long. That's one of the reasons. It doesn't degrade like ours. Ours are, you know, kind of crude machines, you know. And the fish, you know, they live in the water very nicely. So there's also beings living in all the planets, even the sun, the moon. They can't. There's different levels of sight, just like we have in this very room, right? There's so many waves moving. There's the radio waves of all kinds, the TV waves, ultraviolet, all kinds of things we don't perceive. We see, but we can perceive a very small section of the infrared. I think I forget of one part. But so similarly, there are different levels of existence. You know, higher beings that we can't perceive. We can't see their planets. We can't see anything. But they're out there, and this is what we understand. I mean, once you're ready to believe in Krishna and the spiritual world, the sky's the limit. There's really, finding it in the Shastra, not that we just make things up, but that is coming down from higher knowledge. Subterranean heavenly planets, you know, who would imagine? You read the 5th canto and like you have to throw out so many things that you thought you knew. But that's what Krishna consciousness means, is to kind of unmoor you from your secure sense of what is, what is real. And so there are these higher levels of existence. I mean, what does it mean that there are 14 planetary systems? Brahma Loka, and Tapa Loka, Siddha Loka, all these different lokas. We can't see them with the telescopes, but they're out there. So, what is that phrase? As a Shakespeare, there are more things in heaven and earth that are dreamt of in your philosophy, O Horatio, or something like that. It's close. Yeah, that's what it is. Both things can be there. We'll keep reading this chapter. By the end of the chapter, we'll understand. All right, so we'll begin tomorrow from 14? Yeah, 14. And then we'll get to 15, which is perhaps the most well-known verse in the chapter. Close behind, maybe, Mamai Bangso Jiva Loki. And now, Krishna book. Krishna book? Nectar Devotion. Okay. Okay. Very important section, Nectar Devotion, most relatable to us. The do's and don'ts of bhakti. Very instructive. Okay, let's see. So, Prabhupada is just, let's see, where are we now? I have this chapter. We're in chapter 2, the first stages of devotion. And the Prabhupada has quoted this verse, Smartavyak Satatam, or Rupa Goswami has quoted, Smartavyak Satatam Vishnu Vismartavyo Najatu Chit Sarva Vidi Nishadaksur Etayor Eva Kinkara. Sound familiar? Smartavyak Satatam Vishnu. Always remember Vishnu or Krishna. Second line, Vismartavyo Najatu Chit. Don't forget him at any time. Now, just to reiterate, to me, this, when I first heard this, I thought, well, this sounds pretty redundant. If you're going to always remember something, isn't that equivalent to never forgetting it? The rest of the verse goes, all of the other regulations are servants of these two. In other words, getting up in the morning and taking a shower. Well, what does that have to do with, remembering Krishna? Because it's meant to get you up in most auspicious time of the day so you can chant. So that's what he's explaining here. And the difference is you have the Vidi and the Nisheda. So Prabhupada's famous rules and regulations, they're not the same. Just like we have the 4 regulative principles, those are don'ts, right? Don't during intoxication, etc. So those are the regulations. But the rules are the proscriptions, things you should do. So in any discipline, there's a set of rules and regulations. Do this, don't do this. You want to become a champion pole vaulter? Okay, here's what you do. Here's, and don't do this. Don't stay up all night. Don't get drunk. In other words, take care of your body, all kinds of things. So there's do's and don'ts. So that's what's being described. If this injunction of always remembering Krishna, never forgetting him, is followed, then all other rules and regulations will automatically fall into line. In other rules, all other rules and regulations should be treated as assistants or servants of this one basic principle. The injunctions or rules and regulations and their resultant reactions are mentioned in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, verses 2 and 3. Chamasa Muni, one of the 9 Yogendras or sages who came to instruct King Nimi, addressed the king and said, 4 social orders, namely Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, have come out of the different parts of the universal form of the Supreme Lord as follows. The Brahmins have come out from the head, the Kshatriyas have come out from the arms, the Vaishyas have come out from the waist, and the Shudras have come out from the legs. Similarly, the Sannyasis have come out from the head, the Vanaprasthas from the arms, the Grihasthas from the waist, and the Brahmacharis from the legs. These different orders of society and grades of spiritual advancement are conceived in terms of qualification. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the 4 social orders and the 4 spiritual orders are created by the Lord himself in terms of different individual qualities. As the different parts of the body have different types of activities, so the social orders and spiritual orders also have different types of activities in terms of qualification and position. The target of these activities, however, is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, he is the supreme enjoyer. Bhoktaram yagitapasam. So whether one is a Brahman or a Shudra, one has to satisfy the Supreme Lord by one's activities. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam by a verse that reads, "Everyone must be engaged in his particular duty, but the perfection of such work should be tested by how far the Lord is satisfied by such activities." For extra credit, who can say what the verse? Atak pumbir dvijashresta varnashrama vibhagashaha swanusitasya dharmasa sangsidhir haritoshanam. That last line you can just remember. Sangsidhir haritoshanam. The perfection of any activity is how far Hari is satisfied. And here in Vedic culture, it's all Varna and Ashram. But if it just becomes caste consciousness, which is we have in India to a large degree, it loses its meaning. It's not Daiva Varnashram. Varnashram for the divine purpose. So, this is confirmed in Bhagavatam by a verse that reads, everyone speaking, okay, we read that. The injunction herein is that one has to act according to his position, and by such activities one must either satisfy the Lord or else fall down from one's position. For example, a Brahman who is born out of the head of the Lord has as his business to preach the transcendental Vedic sound, or Shabda Brahma. Because the Brahman is the head, he has to preach the transcendental sound, and he also has to eat on behalf of the Lord. According to Vedic injunctions, when a Brahman eats, it is to be understood that the Lord is eating through him. It's not, however, that the Brahman should simply eat on behalf of the Lord and not preach the message of the Bhagavad Gita to the world. Actually, one who preaches the message of the Gita is very dear to Krishna, as confirmed in the Gita itself. Such a preacher is factually a Brahman, and thus by feeding him, one feeds the Supreme Lord directly. Similarly, the Kshatriya has to protect people from the onslaughts of Maya. That is his duty. For example, as soon as King Parikshit saw that a black, ugly man was attempting to kill a cow, he immediately took his sword, wanting to kill the black man, whose name was Kali. That is a Kshatriya's duty. Violence is required in order to give protection. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna directly gave his order to Arjuna to commit violence on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, just to give protection to the people in general. The Vaishyas are meant for producing agricultural products, trading them, distributing them, and the working class or Shudras are those who haven't the intelligence of the Brahmins or the Kshatriyas or the Vaishyas, and therefore they are meant to help these higher classes by bodily labor. In this way, there's full cooperation and spiritual advancement among all the different orders of society. And when there is no such cooperation, the members of society will fall down. That is the present position in the Kali Yuga, this age of quarrel. Nobody is doing his duty, and everyone is simply puffed up by calling himself a Brahman or intellectual or a Kshatriya, soldier or statesman. But actually such people are without status. They're out of touch with the Supreme Lord because they're not Krishna conscious. Therefore the Krishna consciousness movement is intended to set the whole of human society in proper condition so that everyone will be happy and take profit from developing Krishna consciousness. You can see that the present society is just falling apart, disintegrating. No one is really satisfied. Even the extremely wealthy are not satisfied because they're afraid that all the people they've been exploiting for so long are going to have a revolution. So they have to hold them down more and more. And even if one achieves some material, Hare Krishna, welcome, some material success, then you're never satisfied because you're out of touch with Krishna consciousness. This Varnashram system only works when Krishna is in the middle. How else are the Shudras going to be satisfied? If you're plowing something or you're doing some menial labor, I mean, can you imagine how dry it is? I mean, I did my stint of manual labor, and it was just like, I was thinking, what am I doing here? Eventually I went back to school, but I wasn't happier in school. Because I wasn't Krishna conscious. I was looking for philosophy. I studied Western philosophy. Ironically, I got far as Philosophy 101, but it was a review course, and it was all the Hegel and Kierkegaard and all these guys, one after another. And it was taught by an Indian gentleman who'd given up his philosophy and was teaching it. But I was looking for some source of ethics, what the right thing was to do, because I was so troubled by the Vietnam War. So how do we found this feeling of profound wrongness that I feel about that in philosophy? Didn't help, but luckily, anyway, it's a long history. But I got very sick, and in order to get my health back, I went back. I thought I'll try some yoga. I went to Amala Bhakta's yoga studio in Manhattan. He was teaching yoga at that time. Wasn't Amala Bhakta yet. Shiva Prem Swami, something like that. And from there, I got into Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there's no way that everyone could be happy. You can see how if you have nothing, but you have Krishna consciousness, you could be satisfied with practically nothing. A little prasad, warm place to sleep. But if you don't have that, you can't be satisfied with the whole world. Do you think Jeff Bezos is really fully satisfied? $140 billion. I mean, it's obscene. But I got to admit, I also buy on Amazon. How can you not? But still, without Krishna, it's not. I'd rather have be a simple chanter, be able to go to Mangalartik and chant Hare Krishna. Generally, really, like I told you, I used to walk around the whole block. Now I just walk around the building, But I'd come across the end there at the corner of Hornblende and Cass. There's a little what we call bodega in New York, and there's a lottery. Oh, it's only 15 million. It gets up to 100 million. Now you can imagine what that does to people who think, oh, that could be me. I saw a person on TV. But it brings more pain than if you're just a simple person. It's a dream. That's the whole thing in the material world. It drags you on and on. It's a dream. It's hallucination. There's no happiness. Kutra shisha shuti sukha mrigatrishni rupa. This is Rupa Goswami's. Oh, I'm sorry. Too late. All right, we'll pick up that thought tomorrow. All glories to the Prabhupada. Remind me. What's he? What did he do?
It's not you're not getting
It's much down.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Ooh, this last book, shall we?
Yeah,
That's fun, huh?
yeah.
Confused.
I wasn't there.
That's pretty fun.
Sorry.
Is it funny? It's just like ears or something. That's right.
That's why I didn't vote.
Yes. Shri Gauta ki jai. Vande Krishna Chaitanya. Jaya Hari Hari Hari.
Krishna,
Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutave Srimate Bhakti Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutave Srimate Bhakti Sarvadashwami Divine grace, Shila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON be found at our church, Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Srila Paramahamsa, Dravida Prabhu, Ashtotra, Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Gausi Krishna Chaitanya Govindananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Paramahansa Gita Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Ganga Mahi ki jai. Yamuna Mahi ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ki Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Transcendental books. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and all glories to Shri Guru. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Oh Just you and me. I'm going to give you a spoken beat. Just a
So I was wondering that if you can
it'd be great if we had a
Are there any shlokas and like, there's all the different rhythms, but like I'm thinking for kirtan, because kirtan there's like 2 rhythms, like that, fast, 3, and then there's all these other rhythms. I wonder if it's possible to fit them. Like there's this one rhythm which would be really interesting. It's like kind of off-putting, but it's
yeah, tomorrow you're going to come? Lunch? Yeah. Tomorrow lunchtime I'm coming here. The kids for 2 o'clock. Yeah, so
it's possible to like show
you already know
like two rhythms.
I told you before too. Huh? You didn't know about anything.
You're probably hard.
So 4 years ago,
But I did, this one.
I used to.
Namaste Shiva.
Yes.
Smita Loka Shoka.
So they didn't pay me this whole year now then.
Gita to Prabhu.
For 4 years.
Padaram Bakamba. Ibrahim Namaha. Kadeva Chena. Namaste Shiva. Namaste Shiva.
Yeah, careful by them. It's like slower than when you do.
Yeah, that's